So after the Supreme Court decision on LGBTQ rights that recently came down, I told you guys there's now going to be a snowball effect. You're now going to have more cases popping up where more people are trying to discriminate against the LGBTQ community. Now, why did I say that? I said that because they tried to carve out an exception in the law, which I thought was, I just think it's a bogus concept. So the way it used to be is, hey man, if a gay person comes to your store or a trans person or whatever, you can't say, I don't want to serve you because you're gay or trans. In other words, the LGBTQ community is part of non-discrimination protections. They are a protected class in the same way that, you can't deny somebody because of their race, can't deny somebody because of their gender, or their sex, I should say. This community falls under those protections. That's the way it worked. But the Supreme Court heard a case recently, and they said, yes, this woman who makes websites does not have to make a website for a same-sex marriage for this customer because it goes against her religious beliefs. Now, by the way, the facts of that case were completely and utterly made up. Made up. The person who they claim came here to ask for a website for a same-sex marriage, that person is already married to somebody of the opposite sex, and makes their own websites anyway, and is not gay. So the facts of the case were made up. It should have been thrown out for not having any standing at all, right? But they didn't. They heard the case, and here's their decision. They said, look, anything that involves something artistic or creative, then you are allowed to reject doing business with these people. So in other words, if somebody comes into a bakery and says, and they're gay, and they say, I want to buy that cake right there, the business would be mandated by law to sell that cake to them. But they can reject it if the person says, no, I don't want a cake that you've already made. I want you to make me a cake for my same-sex wedding. So again, the idea, they're trying to be like nuanced about it to say only if it's a creative thing that goes against your own, ideas or your religious faith, then you can reject somebody who's part of the LGBTQ community. But what did I tell you? I told you, well, what'll happen now is people will say, I don't know what you're talking about. Everything is creative by definition. Whatever job you're doing, even if it's like an engineering job, for example, there's some element of artistic creation in it, because people doing your work is an extension of who you are. So in some sense, it's part and parcel of your being. So, people can just claim, hey, this thing is artistic, even if it's a stretch. And, who's the Supreme Court going to be to tell them, well, we're against you on this one? Because they've already laid the groundwork and the precedent of, if you have the religious objection or a deeply held belief, you can reject people for immutable characteristics. It's crazy. Well, now, that train is right on time, as I told you it would be. Traverse City Hair Salon no longer servicing certain LGBTQ members. Well, what do you know? Exactly right. Studio 8 Hair Lab. This is the name of the hair salon, and this is what they posted. I guess this is on Facebook. If a human identifies as anything other than a man or woman, please seek service at a local pet groomer. You are not welcome at this salon, period. Should you request to have a particular pronoun used, please note we may simply refer to you as, hey you, regardless of, and that they're citing a local or state law that went into effect on this issue. This is America. Free speech. This small business has the right to refuse services. We are not bound to any oaths as realtors are regarding discrimination. My recent airport experience validates this. Okay. So, now, when you read this, you might think, well, what the hell is this person talking about? It sounds like they're saying, if you identify as anything other than man, woman, so if you identify as, I guess, non-binary, they would be discriminating against, or, otherkin or whatever. That's what it seems like. But then this news outlet, 9 and 10 News, reached out to them. And here's what we learned. 9 and 10 News reached out to the owner, Christine Geiger, who said she has no problem with the LGB part, so lesbian, gay, bisexual part. It's the TQ plus that she doesn't support. Geiger said she is taking a stand against being forced to use prefers pronouns such as they, them, he, him, she, her. So in other words, anybody who has different pronouns you're not allowed in. Trans people, you're not allowed in. I guess queer people or like non-binary people, you're not allowed in. So she says, I'm okay. How progressive of her. She says, I'm okay with lesbians, gays, and bisexual people, but I'm not okay with trans people, queer people, non-binary people, or anybody who goes by pronouns that are different from what it was on their birth certificate. That's the point that she's making. Now, I pose the question to you guys. You ready? If you run a hair salon, you're doing people's hair, does that fall under the realm of artistic and creative? I would submit to you, it absolutely does. Which is why this carve-out the Supreme Court made is total BS. It is bogus. It is nonsense. In the same way, I don't think you could find a nuanced way to discriminate against black people or any other race. Why should you be able to find a nuanced way to discriminate against gay people or trans people? Look, the whole point, it all hinges on this. None of this is a choice. Your race is not a choice. It's not a choice if you're gay or not. It's not a choice if you're trans or not. You just are that. So functionally, it's an immutable characteristic. Should you be punished for an immutable characteristic? Should you not get the same service because of an immutable characteristic? It would be as stupid as this lady saying, if you have blue eyes, we're not going to serve you because blue-eyed people annoy me. I don't really care. You need to serve everybody equally. Now, if somebody comes into your hair salon or comes into your store or whatever, and they just start turning over shelves or breaking your equipment or yelling at people, are you allowed to ban that person? Absolutely. But that is based on literal actions. It is not based on an immutable characteristic. You have to do equal protection under the law. And they're not doing it. And the Supreme Court opened this door. So, look, you're going to have all these states. Blue states are probably going to keep implementing, LGBTQ anti-discrimination laws. But if the Supreme Court says our interpretation of the Constitution is that you have a right to deny people service if you're doing something creative, well, then you open a Pandora's box, and anywhere in the country, any bigot is going to use this as an excuse to not serve these people who they don't like. So here we are. I told you this was going to happen. It's already happening. There's going to be more stories exactly like this coming out. And it's just the beginning, man. So they have effectively legalized discrimination against the LGBTQ community, but as you're seeing here, bearing the brunt in this particular instance are trans people, queer people, non-binary people. It's so pathetic. I can't imagine. Could you imagine being this woman here with her absolutely unnecessary hatred? No words for it. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.